Yes, that's right, infidels. It's not Wednesday. It's the super secret ultra kayfabe pre-4th of July version of the Conspiracy Horsemen coming to you live here at twitch.tv/Conspiracy Horsemen. So if you're getting the message, then you're probably in the chat room already. So we'll wait till to load up here for just a minute. But it was a great weekend for all the Conspiracy Horsemen. We went all in at All Been in Rome, New York. We defended our tag team titles. Heels over strong all day long. Horsemen over strong. A great time to see everybody. Got some great audio, video for you guys coming up. Stevie's working hard on getting everything's, edited up for you guys, and there's going to be so much new stuff coming that we're going to be very proud of it, I'm sure, because we had a great time. Just to be on the road together, all four of us, was a great weekend. So, y'all, all infidels, I see chat room loading up now. We wanted to get it in before everyone's 4th of July, so you had something to listen to, so you could kick it with all your friends and family. Get your drink on, get your smoke on, be safe, but always search for truth, no matter what day it is, with the Conspiracy Horsemen, infidels. Y'all law, and that's right. If you knew your history, then you would know where you're coming from, and then you wouldn't have to ask Hameen, who the hell do I think I am? Because we're just Hameen soldiers in the heart of America, stolen from who knows what planet at this time, brought to America. But y'all law, it's Hacker Hameen, it's Big Stevie Cool, and the Greek God Papadon tonight here on your Conspiracy Horsemen. Hey guys, what's going on? Good to be back. Want to just first off say thanks to Chuck. We got the triple overlay tonight. Unfortunately, Big Sal had some stuff with the wife that he couldn't make it tonight because we had to go a day early. So we hope they're doing well, having a good time as we go into the holiday here. But Papadon, he's the Ant-Man tonight. He's the big face, and Stevie and I, we got his back. We'll back him up here. So. Which we did in the triple threat this weekend at All Been. It was an awesome match for me because I didn't have to do fuck all. And I had the two body guys and athletes towing the line. I just got to come in and hook up Dick Justice for some last-minute pain. And, of course, he tapped out because he's the Infidel Supreme. So a good time all the way around, and everybody who's been following us. Hameen Media Discussion Group. Stevie and I cut some live promos today just to say thank you and update you with what's going on. New contest coming from Hameen Media Discussion Group. I got 6 pairs of gauntlets that I'm going to be giving away from @SteveTheShoeMan on Instagram. So we'll give him a follow. I want to say thanks to Steve the Shoeman for sending that stuff so you guys can have some more things to participate in contest for the upcoming week. But, yeah, let's kick it to my brothers. It was a good time. I know we had a long drive home. GGP, how you doing, bro?
Doing well, man. We're about to spark up the barbecue, cook up some burgers,
nice,
some dogs for the family, basking in the glory of counting the hundreds because we got 99% of the gate, giving Dynasty the largest house they ever had because we were on the poster and all 4 of us was in the house. So from now on, we are the architects of Dynasty because we draw the houses.
Yeah.
Other than that, we bitch smacked everyone in that ring that night, took our titles back home where they belong around our sexy waist. Stevie power bombed some jabroni straight to hell. He didn't even need to choke him out with his 12-week resistant bands. He just basically took his head off with those pythons he calls arms. He had the women's all moist in the crowd, and they were sweating because it was hot as balls, but it's all right. It was a good time.
It was hotter than hell in there, man. It wasn't bad in the locker room or where we shot the Horseman bonus, which will actually be on this at the end. So you're kind of getting 2 Horseman shows tonight. Might be extra super long, to be honest with you, by the time I'm done editing, probably over 3 hours. But, we just want to get that out there on the platform. But, yeah, Stevie looked at me and goes, you want me to give this kid a Stevie bomb? I go, you better tag in and fucking kill that kid.
Yeah, he asked me, he goes, ask if he can take a power bomb. I asked the kid.
No, I ask if he can take a power bomb.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
I go, the
And
hell.
I asked the kid, can you take a power bomb? Yeah. Okay.
We got all of it. Unfortunately, though, it does look like Stevie kind of, chewing on his crotch in the picture while he's going down midair there. But
they didn't. They would have been. I'll just use the other shot when I've got the hand up in the air.
Yeah. No, it was awesome, man, and great to be in a six-man in that building. I've been in a lot of them, which we call shitty sixes, with kind of like who's left over. So to kind of be in there in a headline spot with the six-man was pretty cool. But Stevie, how you doing back to the ATL, back to Smyrna, and doing a lot of editing, man? Got all of the files that we shot for 36 hours, so I know you're knee deep in it.
Yeah, not quite to the editing part, more like scrubbing through the footage. And that's why I did the live video on Facebook today, to kind of show everybody at least that one bit of evidence from the Capitol Theater in Rome, New York. Audio-wise, I'll still need to get some stuff from Papadon and Sal. I think no matter what, I mean, I'm a real OCD about the audio and everything, but I think even what we had, even coming off the camera audio, was really, really good, because the content there is really good. The Giant stuff, I think it turned out really well with the interview with the girl that runs the the Farmers Museum. Yeah. But my favorite has to be we couldn't ask for a more successful, time doing the Capitol Theater. We didn't expect that much access to everything and that much time. I thought at one point we were going to stay all night for like an all-night lights-out investigation, because she didn't seem to mind you were there.
No, Julie, she was awesome, man. Had great info. It was just crazy. And I'm kind of glad we'll talk about this picture, but we're saving it. We're not going to show it, because that's going to be one of the hooks of the Patreon subscription for these. But I'm telling you what, guys, the picture that she just kind of took out nonchalantly off of a question, it wasn't like she had her whole rap and worked out, where it was like, so is there any evidence? She's like, oh, wait, let me see. Yeah. And goes underneath, like she's working the popcorn stand. It's just down there, and it brings out this incredible down there, this incredible picture, and right where we went, right where it was taken and photographed, and that's where we were getting a lot of the sounds and feedback after we would kind of ask questions of the ghost of the Capitol Theater. So pretty crazy stuff, and I know you guys will be looking forward to seeing that picture, because it knocked our socks off when we saw it, man, especially me, the skeptic of them all. So it was really great access there at the Capitol, and growing up there was an awesome time, and there was always that folklore and legend around there, and it's definitely got even more longevity, which will kind of tie into what we're talking about tonight on the show. Because right down the road is Fort Stanwix, Revolutionary War Fort, but it's a reconstruction, because the original fort was pretty much where the Capitol Theater stands, mid-1700s, early 1700s. And a lot of battles were fought there, tough battles, and this ghost looks like it could be right from that period. So it might not even be like, oh, a guy had a heart attack while watching Guys and Dolls back in 19 whatever. Like, the way the ghost is dressed, it definitely could be some apparition 1700s still kicking around. So it was pretty cool, man, all the way around.
And let's just am I binging again?
No,
you're good.
Oh. I better talk before that happens again.
I just screwed
Let me just say out here, we went into this. Actually, I think we went into this even without being intentionally detailed about not contaminating each other's evidences and each other's experiences. We split up. We didn't mean to. It was like Sal, Chuck, and Jamie, his friends, that came up to help out.
Yeah.
And also Jolie were in a Jolie was in a completely different part, but Sal and Jamie and Chuck were 2 floors down. We were in the main theater, and that's when we got activity. So and Sal was in the same projection room we were in, and had a completely different experience than we did. So, Demetrius Zordos and I were 2 feet from each other. He's hot as hell. I'm freezing. We're all getting these different temperature variances. And then we go to the creepiest part of the Capitol Theater, where we figure, wow, this is going to be its dark corners. It's really gloomy. Nothing. Yep. So weird, like the backwards of reverse of what you would assume would happen from every ghost show you see.
Right on. Yeah, it was for kind of not a last minute thing, but we were like, well, let's make the most of everything we have access to. that turned out to be one of the hottest moments, of everything we did. So, but stay tuned for that. We're all working hard. Got some voiceover stuff to do, and Stevie's got all the tech to make it incredible. And I think we got a lot of great content for you guys. So, but it was more about being on the road, with each other and having a good time. Something, the content will live on in the Ethernet forever, but really those moments between us were something special. I just wanted to put that over, man.
Well, by the way, somebody forgot to say that we were sleeping at a funeral home too.
Well, it hasn't been a funeral home since like 1800s, so
It's all right. I slept like the dead that night, so it's okay.
I was so scared. But
Dude, I'd never seen you like that, really, coming out of when we were at the theater. That was a new Stevie Richards I'd seen there, man. Like, he was really excited, like little kid excited, somewhat scared, like, holy shit, like I hadn't seen that much.
How about the time when I was climbing up into the upstairs to the crow's nest? He's like, no, don't go, don't climb. Get down here like a dad. Don't go up there.
He was scared for you, man, for sure. It was fun though. But tonight's show, you guys, is something we wanted to delve into, and it's not really the mystery of it all, because some people know it and some people don't, but it's about breaking the conditioning that we've been taught everything from kindergarten through college level. I never even had a college professor bring this stuff up to me when I was at undergrad. But tonight we wanted to talk about the 8 presidents before George Washington. Before the United States of America, there was the Articles of Confederation, and there were 8 presidents that not a lot of people even know that. You ask almost, if you were to poll 100 people, they're going to say, who's the first president? It's definitely probably going to be George Washington, or some idiots will say Abraham Lincoln.
Can I interject for a second?
Please go ahead.
Actually, it's 17 presidents before Washington.
Here I am.
I deep dove into this baby. Deep dove into this head first, and I found out some stuff today that I didn't even know, and some stuff that I thought was true that was later debunked, which happened to be fictitious. So we're gonna have one hell of a show for all the listeners today.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to hearing your research as well. And then I've got about a 9-minute clip from Glenn Beck, and I mean, not another person we like to put all of our trust and hope into, but he is, very hungry historian. And when he was back on Fox, this is a clip from years ago, where he talks about the African-American founding fathers, black founding fathers, and how they are kayfabe from history. And why aren't we, the bigger overall arcing question that horsemen are trying to expose or answer is, why is this stuff still not being taught? Why? Yep. That shows the conditioning system that we're in. And if here's just these men who are founding fathers, we've talked about it with the globe, with flat Earth. It becomes a hot topic all the time, we've talked about Neil deGrasse Tyson saying the Earth is pear-shaped, but everything we have is perfectly round. Hold it in your hand like a ball, like little kids are conditioned to, play sports, and that's just an easy way to assimilate them into some type of, indoctrinate them into just the pattern of thought. And, we always hear that phrase, the history is written by the winners. Well, in this case, it kind of wasn't. And even rewritten in the 80s, a couple of these things to take some of these black founding fathers and just in paintings where we've seen these paintings over and over again, turn them into like, oh, he was a slave, when the reality was he was a free man, or they were free men like anybody else, respected, literate, and doing incredible work at the time to make sure America would become a free country, but their names are lost to history. So that's kind of what we want to cover today. Stevie, what are you thinking on that, man?
Just why? And also at the same time, this opens up a whole new thing when people say the government wouldn't lie to you, they wouldn't make up a story. The very essence and the very origin of the people who pioneered this country has been severely edited or omitted. Mm-hmm. It's crazy. Yeah, you wonder why. Like, we could have been how many hundreds of years ahead of where our country is now if that was acknowledged. Obviously,
sure.
What the thing that makes it really weird is it was almost like we had 2 Americas, because the America that we know where there was slavery, and obviously that had to be, go on for quite a bit until the Lincoln administration, when the Civil War and having slavery end. So you're talking about what, 90 years from the point when the first president, not George Washington, wasn't
Right.
it? 17. What am I?
74.
So you're talking about almost 100 years that that African Americans were fighting side by side, being war heroes, and also there were 6 black presidents supposedly before Obama too.
Mm-hmm.
So there's all this stuff going on that all we know about as far as what we've been indoctrinated to is black people were slaves up until this point, and they've been fighting for their freedom and equal rights almost, well, people would say up until today, when this could have empowered just people. It could have set humanity on a course to be much more enlightened and ahead by hundreds of years. But why?
Also aligned, not only enlightened, but aligned, being on the same side of the fence. If you realize back then, we had all these senators and people who were black, who were slaves, and then 5 years later in the House of Representatives, not holding any gripes and trying to make America better. The powers that be hid all that information and keeps everyone divided, because they figure if we're all divided and slowly and surely information leaks out, then people get upset. Why was it hidden? It's the white man trying to hold us down, kill Whitey. Then at the end of the day, a house divided can't stand, because they know it's like the promoter versus the locker room. The locker room has all the power if they all work together against the promoter, but everyone's worried about themselves, and they don't realize that they have all the power, that they put all the power in the promoter's hand, and the promoters are able to manipulate the boys. Same thing with the government. Same exact tactics. Divide and conquer. Divide and conquer. If we all realized that back in the day, in the 1700s, 1800s, people were willing to work together and stop listening to the narrative, then people today would say, you know what? We can do it today as well. Instead of listening to George Soros and his paid hate, and to the alt-right and their paid hate, trying to keep everyone separated, and realize, you know what? Together, we come together. We're a tougher union. We're a tougher force, and we can get a lot more accomplished in this world. We can end hunger. We can end poverty, probably end all diseases. And then what's going to happen? The rich will be just like everybody else. They're not going to be special. They're not going to be in the main event. They'll be jerking the curtain just like everybody else, and they don't want that. They would rather have all the power.
This is insane. I think this is something that someone could look at, and this could open a lot of people's eyes and wake a lot of people up, because who's going to turn around? This is the trigger point right here, because then you're going to turn around and say, you're going to borderline sound racist if you reject this bit of history.
Yeah,
it's not like Flat Earth and 9/11 and all this stuff, but they all systemically come from an elite part of the government, even way back then. This is me the way I'm looking at, kind of speculating, but it's the only logical answer. Is there was an elite part of the government, whether it be the bankers. Remember the Andrew Jackson, the famous thing when he tried to fight the bankers and the central bank back then, and it came down to money. But this here is almost it's got to be in some way ego driven, or like Papadon said, the only thing that really draws right now for a government, you talking about, how they book this, is heat. Just like in wrestling, they wanted to have heat because it's the only way they could draw all the money in their own way and keep people fighting each other and ignoring them. I just can't believe that these people had enough forethought or enough big picture thinking way back then to pull something like this, to hide it from history. Like, when did they say? I know that people were aware of it up until they started editing it, I think in the 1800s. Am I correct on that?
Yes.
They started kind of hiding it. But they had to have some kind of larger plan then, like, we got to hide this because of this plan that we have.
Well,
There's not just a thing.
I think that to look at it from our standpoint, the worker standpoint, like we did everything this past weekend, and I think it works well for us. Obviously, it's a little bit different than what we're looking at. Like we looked at the Cardiff Giant, And sure, it's exposed as a hoax, but we even pose the question: why would you hoax that unless other real things were found? Right? To what's your motivation behind that to make that money? It's not going to draw unless you had something real that people had heard about and they want to see. So what was going on at that time was the Articles of Confederation before the Declaration of Independence, which pretty much took the 13 original colonies states and made them states and brought them together to fight the powers that be, King George and the whole nine, But it seems afterwards, with kayfabing history, that's where maybe an enlightened northern states versus the southern states split off, as we obviously had the Civil War. But the Civil War did the better job as the shifty promoter to fuck up history, right? To keep that down. And think of, even from our parents' generation, 1950s till now, this has been in history books nonstop. It's never been outlined and then pulled out that way. So every textbook from college, high school, and middle school, and even when you're first learning your presidents in elementary school, none of this is put in there. None of this is in your conditioning system. So whatever moves they did to win out to not rewrite history, but omit history for a conditioning method, which caused divisiveness between races and even rewriting things later in the 80s, as it says in that video. Why we still even have books like this when we have the internet at our disposal? But how many textbooks will be printed this year with misinformation in it?
Oh, absolutely. It's like Disney when they purchased Star Wars and they canceled old canon and the extended universe was no longer canon, and now they were rewriting it with their own canonization, and they only cherry picked whatever they wanted, right, and whatever good ideas they had from the extended universe, which I wasn't a fan of anyway, are being implemented into their new canon right now. So the same exact thing's going, or has been done through history, and will continue to be done so. I mean, it's all a matter of perspective. I mean, look at what's going on today in the news between the left and the right, the liberals and conservatives. Something happens, Donald Trump does something, and right away he's getting bashed for it. But if you really sit down and do the research, it's coming from the Obama administration or the Bush administration or the Clinton administration, and he's just following procedures. So it's not his fault, but they're ready to crucify him for whatever reason because they don't like the guy. But that's exactly what's going on, and that's what's been going on since the beginning of time in this country, because they know if we all came together exactly as one melting pot, we'd be the world's strongest superpower. No one can mess with us because we'd be able to fix all the problems in the world. And if all the problems are fixed, then there's no money.
That was a perfect point. Stevie, take it. I'm just answering some questions here in the chat room real quick. They wanted to know about Giants and which way to steer them that way.
Well,
by the video.
Yeah. Well, here's where this might trigger something from Papadon that said, not a fan of Giants, reminds me too much of fake dinosaurs and triggers me. So I'll let Papadon take that one.
Listen, man, I don't know how. I got to do more research about the dinosaurs. Eric Dubé's little video. I brought it up at work the other day, and everyone looked at me sideways. I said, whatever, man. You don't have to believe it. I don't really believe it right now. I got to delve into it more. But it made a valid point. Dinosaurs they've never, according to Dubé, they've never found a full skeleton of a dinosaur. So they've only found 1/3 or 5/8 of a skeleton, and then they made the rest up because they needed to put something on exhibit, in the museums to basically, prove their Darwinistic point of view, which in my opinion is a work within itself. Because if we really came from apes, how come there's still apes here? Just doesn't make any sense. Okay, can we have been evolved from somebody else, from something else because of alien intervention? Maybe. Could it just be that we evolved as a species due to circumstances on the planet? We just adapted to our surroundings? Could be. Could it be that we've always been this way for the last X amount of years and we were created like this? Could very well be. Could it be something that we don't even know about? Yeah, it could be. But regardless of the fact, giants, they're in the Bible. So even if the Bible's a work and people who don't believe in the Bible, why would it be in the Bible? And then they're finding skeletal remains.
And as you said before, it's in multiple countries, just like these pyramids that are found.
Yeah.
Like the same story of the flood. Yeah.
Yes, I was just going right to the same point. When we were talking to Christina, we said, listen, man, all these people and all these tribes all over the world had very similar stories about a great destruction, about a flood. Obviously, they don't have telephones back then, and they don't talk to one another, by text or by Skype. So they couldn't coincide to keep the story together. So they obviously has to be some article of fact behind every tall tale from every tribe around the world. And every tribe also had a story or a tale about giants. So it could very well be there was a race of giants that we took out, or they died in the flood. Who knows?
Can't believe
but that's the point of the horsemen.
I'm quoting Bible verses or
You
pointing
are
people to Bible.
Pastor Haman.
Pastor Haman, yeah.
Pastor
And
Haman.
speaking of pastor,
the guy walking in the cloud.
Say again? Oh yeah, the guy walking on the cloud gimmick. I want to get back to
that?
Yeah, that could be After Effects, but it could also be just like what we saw in China with that is it Operation
Dimension.
Yeah, Blue Beam, or is it Dimensional Portal opening? But it seemed very similar for sure.
I want to say this too, just to add on. Wow, this is groundbreaking stuff, and this is really bigger than especially if you're in any kind of conspiracies. And then there's other stuff, like we're talking about dinosaurs, we're talking about flat Earth, talking about this stuff and that, and it's very polarizing. But when you have this part of American history, which is so huge and could change the scope of the way we look at each other as human beings, and they're hiding it, now it's going to open up the floodgates of, okay, so every single thing that I've found out since I started investigating conspiracies have been lies by the government. So what's keeping them from lying, and what's keeping the people in charge of the information from rewriting it? And that does, you have to give it up to people. There's a reason why Eric Dubé, flat Earth people, the nuclear bombs and dinosaur deniers and all that stuff, they give them some fuel for their fire because they lie all the time. So that's, you can't turn around and marginalize these people because they are given the right to believe these things, because the track record has been nothing but lies.
Yeah. And you were speaking on Pastor Hamin. I just put some Deuteronomy in the chat room.
Is you blessed the chat room?
I can't believe it. Yeah, y'all, you're all blessed. Now go out and get your ProWrestlingTees.com/BenHamin/Stevie Richards/Greek God Papadon. 20% off till the 6th using the code America. Or you can add 15% using the code Infidel if you want to check out as well. But that was one of the, to get back to the history that was kayfabed in that video that I'm going to show here in a little while. It even talks about in New Hampshire, I believe his name was, let me see here, Wentworth Cheswell, and he was elected in 1768 as a judge there. He held 8 different offices for 49 years, and was also a pastor there, I believe, as well, and worked with Washington. And it seemed like a man who was judged on what he had done, nothing to do with skin color whatsoever, in New Hampshire, and was actually a pastor at multiple churches throughout the neighboring states as well. So white church, if you will. We're sitting there listening to African-American or black man at that time, or African man even at that time, because there was no America Articles of Confederation. Just crazy of how divisive we've become, where we look back to where all the cities were burning, 2 years ago? The name's escaping me right now with the Black Lives Matter movement.
Ferguson, Missouri.
Ferguson, and everything that kind of went down. The divisiveness, or to show them as thugs, or the police brutality, and just how far we've gone, down the shitter, and the fact that we let them divide us so much into these categories, when this should be a huge thing of black pride, of founding fathers, of them being in the story, of badasses, of I can't believe and not that I trust Hollywood by any means, but this is how Hollywood should have jumped on it. Imagine if you took any of these characters or any of these founding fathers and developed your HBO series around them, you know what I mean? The movies around them, dude, these would sell out massive, but instead we're doing fucking Wakanda Forever and shit. You know what I mean? We're doing fictional shit.
Absolutely.
So like,
Didn't we do something with Tuskegee Airmen? Wasn't Tuskegee Airmen something like that?
yeah, but even that was kind of, I don't know, man. It wasn't that how it needs to be, like when John Adams and that show came out, you know, like where they're going to show Band of Brothers to high school kids as how they tell about World War II and shit, you know?
Yeah, I got you.
This should absolutely be a fully produced, high level, either miniseries or some type of doc. But that again is going to expose them as rewriting history fully, and then they're going to be caught with their hand in the cookie jar. Well, what else are you fucking lying to us about for the last 100, 200, 300 years? You know?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it just lies upon lies. It gets to the point now where the lies are so great that they can't even keep track of all the lies. And that's why I believe some of the lies are coming to see the light of day because of some of the internet and because of the accessibility of information we have at our fingertips. I mean, let's face it, back in the day with the Dewey Decimal System in the library, unless you were there all the time with your head in a book and you wanted to find out what was happening, you're not gonna find this. You know, you're not gonna click on a book. You're not gonna get a book, and that book is gonna lead you to another book unless you go looking for that other book. Now we have information. We click on a video on YouTube or a link to a certain article, and then boom, it leads us to the rabbit hole to another thing that's very similar or that is incorporated or has some kind of connection to the article or video that we were initially watching or reading.
Right.
So, you know, it's almost like a trail of breadcrumbs.
It is insane, and like have to go back and think of the biggest stories we were told, and then here's these characters in the background whose name we've never heard of, and they were probably as principal a player as the ones that we just know from, you know, signing of Declaration of Independence or a show like John Adams and along those lines. So even in those ones that we look as, oh, here's history come to life because these actors are in it, and I trust these actors. I've seen them in other things, and they would never do that. But where are these other characters that we're talking about? They're left out. So even now, those productions are historically inaccurate to me. You know, like they're not doing it. So
absolutely,
Hollywood
cherry picking.
I'm going to go through the 8 presidents from the Articles of Confederation time, and I'm anxious to hear about the 17. So if you got to cut me off midway, do it. If you want to wait till the end, I'm fine with that. Stevie, do you have anything else before I kind of start to go into this?
No, it's just every week we think we figured it all out. Every week we think, no, every week
we're that far, much farther away.
We have discovered pretty much all the lies. And, you know, you had touched on, hey, you know, that trivia you say to your class, say who's first president, and you say there's 8 other ones. But to ignore the impact that African Americans had in the formation of this country and this republic, not a democracy, a republic, is just criminal, man.
Yeah, well, I mean, it perpetuates the slave victim mentality for generations, as opposed to saying, I have pride and I have stake in this country, and you just brought us here. And da-da-da. Well, there's plenty of truth in that, but here's dudes that were able to rise above it and become, you know, insanely powerful leaders.
This should be why people are really mad.
Yeah.
This should be like, this is the ultimate racism outside of slavery. This is like 1A, 1B.
Yep.
In my estimation. I
agree. So I'm going to get into the 8 presidents here. So a little history lesson here might be a little bit of reading. I just want to say thanks to everybody who's jumped on twitch.tv/Conspiracy Horseman. Our boy Triple D is in there, and he's got a history degree from Syracuse University. So I know he's probably going to be eating this up. I know how much he loves Greek history because Greeks invented history. But, you know, it's, you know, we'll see what we learn right here. So first one to come up here, and if you're watching on the video, I've got these as overlays using OBS. Says the first president of the United States under the Articles of Confederation was John Hanson from Maryland. His term began 1781 and ended 1782. He first attempted to resign directly after being elected with so little power given to the office and no pay to boot. Few wanted the position over political offices in their home states. However, ultimately a quorum could not be reached to name a successor, so he decided to stay on as president. Being the country's first full-term president under the Articles of Confederation meant that he oversaw programs that helped to establish daily life in the new country. For instance, Hanson held the position of president when the government started on the road to creating what would become the U.S. Post Office, then the National Bank. The government also established a single uniform currency through the other states under his most powerless watch. So didn't have a lot of stroke, took the job, and, did what he needed to. John Hanson, not a name that comes to my mind right away, in the story of America. All right. President 2, Elias Boudinot of New Jersey became the second president, serving from 1782 to 1783. His presidency coincided with the official end to the Revolutionary War. Boudinot presided over the country when the Treaty of Paris was signed on September 3rd, 1783. However, the Treaty of Paris did more than simply end the war. It required that the U.S. be recognized as an independent country and no longer a part of the British Empire. Besides being president, Boudinot was also noteworthy for his era for advocating for the rights of both Native Americans and black people, as well as directly sponsoring various youth among these groups so they could receive an education. Now, that sounds like a pretty stand-up guy right there, dude. At that time, with the Paris Treaty, that was, when we were doing Articles of Confederation, that was kind of the enemy of my enemy is my friend, whether it was southern states uniting with the northern ones, but it seemed like the northern ones were pushing for the power at that time for, all men are created equal type mentality, and unfortunately something went severely awry. Thomas Mifflin became the president for a third term from 1783 until 1784. He oversaw the ratification of the Treaty of Paris during his presidency. Originally from Pennsylvania, he served under General George Washington during the Revolutionary War. That former position and Washington's later significance as the first president under the U.S. Constitution made it somewhat ironic that Mifflin accepted George Washington's resignation as commander-in-chief. So worked with him. He almost looks a bit like Washington from what we've seen. With the white hair and, the whole military outfit and the painting that we have here. Richard Henry Lee of Virginia served as the country's fourth president from 1784 to 1785. His presidency might have been pretty uneventful, but his political career afterwards was not. He became a vocal opponent of the now current U.S. Constitution out of the fear that it would create a centralized government too similar to the government that the colonies lived under as British citizens. Ho, ho, ho. He also hesitated because the documented lacked a Bill of Rights, though many of his later suggestions were incorporated into the United States Bill of Rights. That's Richard Henry Lee of Virginia. That's a pretty interesting one to me, you guys. As he was worried that we're going to become a bit too much like a feudal system, or centralized government of what's in UK now. I think he might have been onto something there.
Well, they were incredibly smart for what they could see, like moving forward and everything,
right.
And what could have happened. These guys, the same that was true back then, I guess, is the same that's true today. People don't change that much, and government is definitely something that hasn't ever really changed, whether it's the British one or any ones that were previous to that. I'm seeing, what's funny is I look at the dates. That's why I got mixed up. Everybody assumes Declaration of Independence, 1776,
Constitution,
and then instant. God, what's that?
Then they think Constitution was right on the heels of that, like within a couple days.
No, they think that Washington was like elected president right after that.
Yeah.
Like that's why I was like, when's these? So we're talking about like years and years before even the first non-known president was picked, and then Washington, you're talking about almost 20 years after the Declaration of Independence, correct? I mean, it's a long time.
It's a minute, man, for sure. There's no doubt about it. GGP, anything to add before I go on to the other four? Is he there?
He's talking, but I don't hear him. He's muted. Unplug and replug. Bing, 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 bing,
bing, bing, bing, bing, bing, bing. Readjust your gimbal. That's that popped him. He's got the gimbal. We've got the gimbal out, so this should be fixed.
Hey, man, when you guys see the sweeping entrance shots and everything, you'll be very impressed.
No, I still don't. I don't have nothing from you, GGP.
Might have to restart his computer.
Yeah, you might have to jump out and jump back in on Skype. Try that.
Try quitting Skype and then coming back. You won't miss anything. My little gym buddy.
Yeah, man.
There he goes.
All right, so I'm gonna go ahead. What's that?
No. I want people as we go along to remind them of the gravity of the stuff we're bringing up. It's fucking insane.
Yeah, it is insane, man. And that's what we wanted to do. Obviously it's 4th of July, and we wanted to, do something a little bit, related to our country and everything we've done. So why not expose a couple of lies to truth and give you guys some, good intel to talk about around the barbecue, no doubt.
Do you think people are going to bring it up at the barbecue tomorrow?
I think they will, especially our Twitch.tv.
Our listeners will, but not in general. If Sal brought that up tomorrow to his wife's family, what do you think?
Yeah, I think he'd be in the other room like, oh man, why did I even open my mouth again? But that won't stop Sal. That won't stop him at all.
Well, I don't understand a visceral response to information that you weren't privy to before. This is seriously the first time in detail that I'm looking at this, and I'm not saying they're going, I don't even want to listen to this. This is like that visceral, like denial reaction, the 5 stages of the denial or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And that's what these people are, man. But nobody truly wants to wake up and see anything different. That's why where we're at now, how is it going to change? But it only takes somebody to say, hey, man, we were wrong about our history. We've really got to look into this. It could solve almost every problem we have today.
It very well could in a lot of ways. And I think, this is not to say it's just Horsemen. Like, we're the only ones talking about this ever. Like, it's online. There's plenty of information. But if you don't know about it, why would you even look that up? Why would you put in the Google presidents before George Washington? But that alone is very simple, and maybe your parents who are in their 60s and 70s have never even heard of this. And this is one of those things that we can kind of touch on where conspiracy, they want to keep information from us. Well, sure they have, and this is easily provable that they have, but it's a little less harmless than, well, I don't want to say harmless, but like a 9/11. It's easier to touch upon to show that there has been government control from some X point to Y where we are now,
Yeah, where's popping on that?
I'm not sure. I think he might have restarted.
My microphone is taking up his window, so there we go.
Yeah, you're good, man. So I'm just.
Hey, what happened to Glenn Beck, by the way? Was that like one of his last shows? Because it was totally different than.
Well, he went and started the Blaze and all that and whatnot, but then I can't remember when he had what's the hot little blonde, Tommy or whatever her name is.
Tommy Lauren.
Tommy Lauren. Like something happened around that time, and then he got kayfabed. I just saw him on a Fox that brought him back, and where he was kind of slamming on the media, dude. He's talking about somebody who needs some Stevie Richards fitness, dude. He's got like huge moon face, like put on so much pounds. I think so stressed out. I think they got to him too, man, where he was, I think in Operation Mockingbird, no doubt, but something's happened to him where he's kind of way out on the fringe right now, like Alex Jones status, dude. So.
Wasn't he supposed to be going blind too? Didn't he have a disorder? He has a condition where he's eventually going to go blind. I saw him open up about that. It was one of his last shows on Fox. And I mean, for all we know, who knows if that's a work or whatever. But man, he was like he's trying hard to be like the Morton Downey Jr. type character, gimmick on Fox. But when it came down to it, and this just proves, like, what's that guy's name? Ed Schultz. He's one of the biggest talking heads for MSNBC, and then he goes to RT and exposes the whole work of it all. And now we're supposed to like take you as genuine when you've been phony. I have no doubt Rachel Maddow, when she finally gets fired, she'll end up on RT or somewhere else or Fox News and completely change her gimmick around and be repackaged. People don't get that, though.
I wouldn't doubt that at all. Or else she'll think that she's that over and try and start her own thing like the Blaze, and then it'll spin even farther out of control propaganda-wise.
Oh, you saw what happened to Oberman when he tried to do so little.
Oberman's done, right? Now he's people look at him like he's a psycho.
He's back on ESPN now. He should have never. He actually should have never left that.
Right.
He was one of the best sportscasters there were, and he could have had a nice little niche for like forever.
I'm gonna just keep going here until hopefully we get GGP back on.
Oh, okay.
John Hancock, most famous he's the 5th president. John Hancock, most famous for his large signature on the Declaration of Independence, held the position of the president from 1785 to 1786. His life in politics began long before the presidency and even helped to fund the American effort during the Revolutionary War. His life in politics continued after his tenure as president under the Articles of Confederation. He was reelected as governor of Massachusetts, a position he resigned due to health concerns before becoming president, and even ran against George Washington in the first U.S. presidential election under the Constitution. He did not expect to win, but he had hoped to finish second so he could become vice president. Ultimately, that post went to John Adams, so didn't get the push he wanted to there at the end. But obviously, maybe, I mean, it's easy to say, he funded one side, but is that war profiteering at the same time? And obviously, like GGP, his autograph will take up more space on the poster than the rest of the Horsemen. So, interesting, man. I mean, that's obviously the name John Hancock, synonymous with the insurance and all that type of stuff. Put your John Hancock on it, piece of Americana. But that's one of the few names that really sticks out as like, okay, I know him from the other stories that were told.
Do you think he was that much of a mark for himself when that signature just stands out so much?
I kind of do, man. I think that he probably had, big ego in the locker room over there maybe, and he's like, dude, this is going to be the one that's worth some money right here. So pretty interesting that he tried to run against Washington's, so he thought he could get his spot as VP, but even that kind of kicked him down. So if he was that over, wouldn't it seem like guys would have been for him? But I got a feeling that he was kind of the locker room heater at the end of the day, don't you think?
Yeah, he probably. I mean, I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, he might have been a good man,
yeah,
but he was a horrible politician. That's what got, you know what I mean? The politics involved even back then when it was trying to be simple, you know what I mean? I'm sure they loved Washington because he was the strong leader they needed since he was a general. Who knows? We might have to dip into the Revolutionary War and the events that happened there were probably not what we were told in history either.
Yeah. Yep. There's and help me out, chat room. I've watched it. I cannot recall the title off the top of my head without searching for it. It was just a whole series set during that time. Was it Washington Spies? I think it's called. I'm not sure off the top of my head, but that was pretty interesting too, where it even shows both sides with what's the trader's name? Man, I'm blanking on it. So much stuff right now.
Oh, Benedict
Arnold, and like how he was the good-looking baby face, and like Washington's boy, and how he flipped and all this stuff, and really paints the picture of the British soldiers inside as well, with their different hardcore guys and guys who were just trying to make peace at the same time. So. All right, president number 6 was Nathaniel Gorham, also from Massachusetts, served as a president under the Articles of Confederation from 1786 until 1787. Like many other presidents during the time, his presidency was simply another item on his long list of political accomplishments. He began his career as a public notary who quickly won an election to the colonial legislature during the Revolutionary War. He served as a member of the legislature, becoming a judge even though he lacked legal training. That's interesting. And even attended the Constitutional Convention where he supported the new U.S. Constitution. As for Gorham's family, his sister was the wife of John Layton, an ancestor of the second wife of Theodore Roosevelt, Edith Kermit Caro Roosevelt. So kind of the pebble in the pond to some nepotism that way of our family rules and they will rule forever. So.
They're all in it together.
Since the beginning.
Yeah, it sounds an awful lot like the British royalty.
Yeah, and I think that's what The third president, or I think it was second or third, Boudinot was like, "F this, I'm not having that." The seventh president of the United States was a man from Ohio named Arthur St. Clair. Interesting with the St. Clair reference right there. He held the position between 1787 and 1788. He left the Congress after finishing his term. He then received the appointment to the governor of the Northwest Territory, a position where he often faced off with Native Americans who claimed they, in fact, owned the land. Despite once being enormously wealthy, St. Clair ultimately died poor, with much of his wealth used to support the American Revolution and a young government. Late in life, he gave away the little money that remained of his once vast fortune. That's pretty interesting. You don't usually hear that about a guy having it all, doing it all, giving it away, and then even at the end, not really worrying, knowing that you can't take it with you. So maybe he was a little more enlightened. I'm not sure about challenging Native Americans for their land during that time, though.
Well, it seemed to be the thing to do back then.
Yeah.
I wonder if, like, he could have been like the great philanthropist of his time if they booked him that way. So it's like all these people have a unique thing about them where we could have paint them as the real father of the country or the real person that did the ultimate good.
All these guys all these guys we're talking about seem to have that little parable. And again, we're doing research on the internet, so this can be all from the writer's point of view of what they wanted to frame up as. And then finally, Cyrus Griffin of Virginia had a background in law before he became the 8th and final president of the United States under the Articles of Confederation. He helped put the country's new judicial system on the path to becoming what we know today as the modern American court system. During his work at the Court of Appeals in cases of capture, he continued to contribute to the new country's court system after his presidency, when he went on to become a judge within the District Court of Virginia. That was Cyrus Griffin. So interesting, man. I mean, those are the 8 under the Articles of Confederation. Took, 13 years, I believe. So that was up until 1770. This one doesn't say. So St. Clair was 1788. So was it 1790? When Washington and the Constitution would have been ratified and put through. So you can get a fact check on that. But, here's guys with the exception of Hancock, whose names are pretty much lost to history. No one's, you're going to get Ben Franklin. You're going to get George Washington, John Adams, and a few others that people will know, but Thomas Jefferson's, and all that. But these guys did the deed. They were champ. They held the title, and they're lost forever as far as that goes. So very interesting on a rewrite of history. I'm just trying to see if we can find Papa down here. I don't see anything in our chat that he's back up. I'm gonna try and add him one more time, see if he's rebooted.
Very strange. Well, he's got Windows, so it's not going to boot very quick. I'm sure it doesn't have an SSD in it. So,
yeah.
Well, what other part of American history now, when we're looking at this, and you throw in and factor in these 6 black presidents, out of now you have 14 presidents that existed that we don't talk about.
Right. And GGP kind of put this over of, we're not talking fully African-American presidents, but I guess at the time, if you had 1%, and I don't even know how they test this, without DNA testing back in the day, of having any African-American blood in you, that you would be considered African-American at the time. So black presidential leaders and whatnot, Thomas Jefferson or who knows. So I'm interested to see. I want GGP back on, obviously, so we can see, because he said there was 17. I only knew mainly about the 8. There he is. What's up, good brother? Yalla. And
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you sound wonderful. Wonderful.
Fucking Skype sucks.
Bing, 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 bing.
Bing, 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 bing. Gimbal. All right.
Anyhow, you calling me now?
Is that Sal?
I was calling him.
It says it's me.
Yeah. Whoops.
What's up, ladies?
I think I screwed up. We'll see. I'm gonna ditch you, and I'm gonna call you back if I can get back on that one. Thanks for dealing with us, guys. Hacker Hameen having some issues this way. I'm gonna call these guys right back. Hopefully Skype. We're gonna keep streaming. So thanks for hanging on with us right here, Sal. Trying to do the run in and making me look like a fool here, real quick. Made me look like a fool out there. So mana add call. Good rib here, guys. Appreciate you guys sticking with us as I try and get this figured out. Yeah, Sasquatch fucked up the run, and you guys can still hear me, though. Y'all, Hacker Hameen trying to run the show here. This is just the way it goes right now. So appreciate you guys hanging with us on, all that we've done this week again. Call them all. Skype is not very friendly. Whatever this new update is really sucks. Super bad. Somebody wants a minute of my time? Go ahead. Please, chat room, take it away for a minute. Whew. You guys, I apologize for how crazy this shit is right now. For some reason, it does not want to keep us in. I may have to stop the stream and I'll restart a new one. So if I do, you guys, if I can't get this figured out, just give me one more minute here. We're going to try this. But hopefully you guys got some good plans, twitch.tv for the holiday here. I'm just going to hit these guys up in chat. One minute. Hacker Hameen, Conspiracy Horseman, Botchamania.
Sent me, and then
sorry about that,
What
guys.
happened, man?
He called me and it kicked me out of that call, so I'm gonna call him. And
so he wants to get on.
I guess so. Yeah.
Sweet. Run in by Big Sal.
Yeah, Big
There
Sal.
What's up?
All right, now it's a party.
There he is. Yeah, man. Now I gotta switch and shit. Hold on.
That's
Look
okay.
at that.
Just leave
Oh,
Got
it
your
wait,
with
little
I
us.
left.
pirate flag behind
We
you.
got to hurry up. My wife thinks I'm in the bathroom at the restaurant.
There we go. Switching.
Oh,
Switch the
tremendous.
names around here. Yeah. So, Big Sal, we've just kind of gone through all of the lies of history of, every
that
one of
video
them.
was fucking
We
amazing.
covered them all. No, but
hold on. Let me interject on my 17.
yeah, please. So we covered the
Okay.
first 8 during the Articles of Confederation, but Papadon says he has evidence that there were 17 presidents before George Washington.
Fair enough.
So here he goes. It all started in 1774 with the Continental Congress of the United Colonies. Now, this was founded to independently, quote unquote, debate relationships with the United Kingdom / the Majestic King. Their first meeting was on September 5th, 1974 in Philadelphia at Stevie's house in a backyard in a barbecue. 2 years later, they ratified the Declaration of Independence. Okay? This Continental Congress of United Colonies were made of 56 delegates from 13 colonies. Now, the chairman of this Continental Congress was called the president. He had similar powers. He's very similar to the Speaker of the House. He had no real power like the president has today. He was there just to preside over meetings, and that's how they got the term president, because he was presiding over the meeting. So there you go.
Very cool.
Now, every time the Congress met, there was a new president elected. So here we go. First president was Peyton Randolph from Virginia. He lasted 1 month and 17 days. Second president was Henry Middleton from South Carolina. He lasted a total of 4 days. Third president was Peyton Randolph again. He did it a 2-time champ. He was from Virginia. That lasted 14 days. Then John Hancock jumped in, and he was number 4. Right? He's from Massachusetts. He lasted 2 years, 5 days, and 5 months and 4 days. Charles Thompson was number 5 from Pennsylvania. He was a total of 2 days. Number 6 was Henry Lawrence, not Joey Lawrence from Blossom, but his ancestor. Yeah, his ancestor from South Carolina. He was president for 1 year, 1 month, and 14 days. Number 7 was good old John Jay from New York, 9 months and 18 days. And then number 8 was Samuel Huntington from Connecticut. He lasted 1 year and 5 months. Now, in 1781 from 1788 is what you touched on, which was the Continental Congress under the Articles of Confederations. Now, what happened was you started the list with John Hanson, but in reality, Samuel Huntington was the bridge between the Continental Congress of the United Colonies to the Continental Congress under the Article of Confederation, and the original president was Thomas McCain, but he wasn't recognized as president because his reign only lasted 3 months. So just like some of Flair's title switches, they weren't recognized.
Right on.
So instead of being 21-time champion, they were only recognized 16 out of the 21 times. But I digress. Now, here is the kicker, and this is what blew my mind. Everyone thought John Hanson was the first black president, right? There's a picture of a black guy with spectacles sitting on the internet somewhere saying he's on the back of the $2 bill. Well, it got debunked. And why did it get debunked? Because John Hanson was a 19th century Liberian senator. Okay, the photo that's surfacing the internet is from 1839. The oldest photo recorded in history to date is from 1826. Now, John Hanson, the first president of the Continental Congress under the Articles of Confederation, like you said, Ben, was from 1781 to 1782. So that's 60 years before John Hanson's term finalized. The white John Hanson died in 1783. Now, the back of the $2 bill is really based on a painting done by John Trumbull. And the guy who they're saying, I guess because he's a darker shade of green, is the black John Hanson, is really a finance Sir Robert Morris. So there you go.
Wow, great stuff, dude. Great stuff all the way around, man.
So hang on a second. Did I miss Vince Russo in the room? Did he leave? Because Papa Don is on fucking fire.
Well, then I did some even digger deeping, and what I did find was wait.
I knew he was gonna pop on that one. Deeper digging, but yeah.
All this history was omitted by CERN in Switzerland.
Oh, you beat me to it. You gotta hashtag it.
Hashtag CERN. Don't be concerned. Just get con by CERN.
No, hashtag digger deeping. That's the new one right there.
Hashtag digger deeping.
So is it? Do you think basically it's less nefarious and less evil, and they just are trying to hide the fact that it was a complete clusterfuck for like 50 or 60 years?
I think they went from WCW and current WWE booking to Vince McMahon, Pat Patterson sitting by the poolside booking once the Constitution was ratified, and they just said, you know what, let's forget about this. So even better analogy, our Star Wars fans, let's forget about the prequels. No one needs to know about the prequels. Let's worry about the original trilogy.
And then we had Dennis Hastert with the Ring Boy scandal with Mel Phillips and everybody.
Yeah.
So which era is the golden era?
Well, that guy falls under the same Speaker of the House who got busted for a little boy touching as well, Dennis, whatever his name was.
Yeah, no,
I just said his name.
Dennis Astor.
Wait, wasn't Dennis
Dennis,
the ring announcer? Wasn't
he's
he
gonna have
No,
to do,
Mel Phillips was the ring announcer.
Phillips was the ring announcer.
I said both names. I thought I did.
You did.
He's gonna have to dig her a little deeper.
Yeah. Well, we got it all in right there, man, and thanks GGP for finding that out. I know I had seen a little bit of that beforehand, but all 17 I was unsure of it. And I knew they were short runs, house show title switches more than anything. So
their runs were short like leprechauns.
an interesting part of this too is during Articles of Confederation before the ratification of the Constitution is. We know there's three branches of government: legislative, judicial, and executive. There was only the legislative branch at that time. So What was it? The seventh one under the Articles of Confederation, I believe it was St. Clair, wanted to push for that, and that kind of set up the court system how we're at now. Unfortunately, that's a rib unto itself and a money-making mass scheme as well, though.
Can I ask you a question? Maybe I'm a little off topic here, but Isn't St. Clair Isn't that
Yes,
a
go
name
with it.
synonymous with the 13 families of the royal bloodline?
And Knights Templar,
Okay.
and
All right.
and supposedly, possibly the bloodline of Jesus Christ.
Really?
That his offspring with Mary when they left for
Magdalene?
when they left for Europe, that's where the St. Clair name started to become synonymous. So that's why I said that quick little aha when we were talking about it that way. Like that's
Well,
sets
I got
off
thrown off of Skype, so I didn't hear the aha.
that just set off like a flag with me of like, oh, St. Clair, interesting that way, right? And again, I can never remember the goddamn Tom Hanks movie.
Da Vinci
Angels
Code.
and Demons.
Da Vinci Code. That's Angels and Demons. The St. Clair name is all through that as well. So
Yeah.
pretty
So there are
interesting.
so basically the Knights of Templars and the Masons, they all have their hands in the cookie jar of America since the beginning of time.
I mean, look, the way we talked about this, the way DC's laid out, the sacred geometry, the the symbolism and imagery, the painting of George Washington in the Freemason apron, also the cornerstone, this place there, all this stuff is all intertwined, and that
Wasn't
go ahead.
wasn't one of the names on the that Glenn Beck video? One of from the Black Founding Fathers. Wasn't he the one who designed the structure of DC?
DC, yeah. He was he's the architect. He was the mathematician. He's the one that what they sent over to France, right?
Yes.
That they were like, oh, you think they're inferior? Check this guy out.
Yeah, and you want to talk about in France at that time, and this has been documented too in recent films or what have you. The Ben Franklin that we know of him trying to invent shit or being out there with a kite and a key. He discovered electricity, getting his tits lit, when really he was banging out whores in France, orgies, Hellfire Club, doing.
That's become like actually people have started with Ben. They've been like now that's made him like an icon,
right?
Because he was
Banging horse.
Yeah, he was a womanizing motherfucker, and he didn't give a fuck who knew.
So UECW guys must have followed the suit then, huh? Because you guys are like legends. You guys are like rock stars.
But like that's the thing, like everybody,
Not all of us. Stop.
everybody always, everybody always looks at Ben Franklin and they're like, oh, founding fathers. He's a scientist. Little Richard's Almanac, the whole bit, and but he was a drunk. He was a whore fucker constantly. They said, with the Hellfire Club, they did that so he can go and fuck whoever he wanted to, whenever he wanted to.
Yeah, and you had all the, Finn Balor style French royalty with them painting their faces like clowns and everything like that. Just doing all type of, bisexual shit going on at that time. Meanwhile, you got founding fathers knuckling up in the woods trying to fucking, bust gats on the redcoats.
One of the funny things when we went to Ireland that they were talking about, they do a tour, the Hellfire Clubs, and they do a death tour where they take you to all these pubs and bars and shit, but they've all been places that the Hellfires had meetings. So people got fucking whacked, right?
Let's go.
But the big, they actually put this as their big sell. Ben Franklin was a notorious whoremonger who used to go to these places and frequent them.
Mm-hmm.
And like when they knew they were going to do meetings and shit, he'd show up like a day early just to get his fucking shit in.
Literally.
And they also found 5 bodies supposedly under the place that he would stay.
Well, yeah, that got debunked low. That wasn't that wasn't anything like diabolical. It wasn't like totally top drawer, but back in the day, you used to pay some dudes, and if somebody died, they brought you the body. Like that wasn't a big deal for doctors to practice.
Yeah,
like,
that also put some necrophilia, spin on it possibly too.
I'm sure Ben gave it a fucking go. I'm sure he gave it a run.
Wow.
Yeah, it was all Ben that day. So
does anybody else see Stevie Richards dressed like Ben Franklin?
I'd
right
like to
now?
see the wig.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
We got to get you into the Ben Franklin costume, buddy.
Have a little helper. We'll have Envy dress up as his little helper holding the kite in the electricity storm.
Yeah.
He sure as hell shouldn't be holding a pen.
Thank you.
Tremendous.
I love when he came back and he basically said that our 6-man tag was really good, and usually he just threw it together like just a shit match, but it was good.
Hey, you guys
I was
really
like,
saved.
you just
saved
admitted. You just admitted that you threw us out there. Thank you.
We covered it earlier, Sal, before you went on. You know, we put over what a great weekend it was with all 4 of us together being on the road, and thanks to Jamie and Chuck for being there too. It was a good time having them there, and just wanted to get your opinion on anything and everything that kind of went down from the show to on the road and everything we saw, man.
Man, like, it honestly, like, people are asking, how was your weekend? How was your weekend? It took me a second. I was like, it all seems like one long day.
It did.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it didn't seem like there was any fucking point. It was just like, just one long fucking day. It was crazy. It was crazy and amazing. It was good.
Yeah.
Put it this way, guys. If WCW, ECW was still around, or there was another national, we were all on the road together, we'd be fired or dead. Or arrested within a couple of weeks of time. Like I said before.
Well, I wish we were, so I wouldn't have to. I could work 6-mans all the time, so I wouldn't have to do any singles and expose myself for being rotten. But yeah, you know, shout out to again to Dippin' Donuts for providing us with the
Triple
fuel.
D, my man.
Good time.
Speaking of Dippin' Donuts, as if fate steps in, as if it walked in and said hello. As soon as I come home, next morning in the morning, I get up, I go out. And what happens on the end of my block, on the end of the strip mall where I got to go food shopping, is an open, blank storefront on the end. And it says right in the front, perfect for drive-through edition. And I went, grabbed my phone, and I was like, 3D, what's up, buddy?
There you go.
You
got to get your ass to Forks, man. Get him out here.
I would say he's hungry to expand, but after I jammed that 1-pound jelly donut into his face,
he's not hungry for much.
It was a good time, man, all the way around.
It's all right. He's used to getting pounders jammed into him all the time. He's Greek.
Shit.
Don't worry about it.
Getting his jelly jammed.
Shit. But next thing I wanted to do, guys, because we're probably going to close out a little bit early tonight, is play this video, and it is 9 minutes. I'm going to start it off, and GGPP can go do his thing real quick, and you know.
Hey, what'd you say, GGPP?
Chat room, let me know if you guys can hear this Glenn Beck video. It's very important. You know, I'm not trying to be a Glenn Beck mark or anything like that, but
I like his song "Loser."
Yeah.
I was just going to say that. Damn it, Sal.
But let me know you guys in the chat room can hear this. I'm going to set it off now.
You're going to have to ask yourself a couple of questions by the end of the program.
But we can't hear the video.
Why would our schools leave all of this history out? I mean, this is some of the greatest American story that you've ever heard. Why would they do that?
What do you want me to do?
And it's everywhere. You just don't know where to look. If you take a look at the revolutionary paintings of revolutionary times, here it is. This is the Boston Tea Party. A bunch of white guys, and these people strangely looking like Indians, and they're not. But that's it. Not a lot of racial diversity. If you watch movies, what a great movie. This is John Adams. You watch John Adams and you don't see a lot of racial diversity. I'm currently watching Johnny Tremaine. This is... I love this movie. I remember this growing up. I was watching it with my kids just last night, and I noticed there are a couple of American Indians, but you don't see any African Americans unless they're slaves. They will show people as slaves, but that's it. Now, I want to show you a painting of the Battle of Bunker Hill. Here's the Battle of Bunker Hill. Bunch of white guys, right? Unless you know where to look. Right here. That's Peter Salem. He was actually the hero of the battle. It doesn't look like he's a hero there. He looks like he's cowering behind the white guy with a sword. He was the hero of the battle. And he saved scores of American lives that day. Why don't we know this? Look here. African American, helping row the boat across. You know what his name was? Prince Whipple. He fought alongside Washington during the Revolution. Take a look at this one, this painting of, this is the Marquis de Lafayette. He if you look at this, you just think, oh, yeah, and then he made his slave dress up like I don't know what. But that's what you would think, right? This guy is incredibly important. This guy may have won the Revolutionary War. James Armistead was his name. How did he win the Revolutionary War? Double spy. I'm going to let David tell the story here in a minute, but basically the Brits thought that he was spying for them, but he was spying for General Washington. He'd give the Brits bad intel and reveal the good critical information to General Washington. Did you know this story? Why? I'm so tired of people saying, well, it was just the white people, white people, white people. No. No. Why are we intentionally leaving others out? There are black founders. Human history. If I ask the audience, when did America have its first African-American judge? What year would you say? Anybody? Take a guess. Judge. 1860s? Anybody? 1770. Amy, is that just a wild guess?
No, not. I wasn't sure exactly, but I think it's about
1770. Tell me.
1768. Wentworth Cheswell, New Hampshire, elected to office in New Hampshire. He was reelected for the next 49 years, held 8 different political positions. Really cool story about him is we all know that Paul Revere made his midnight ride. We also know he wasn't the only guy riding that night. Another guy riding, Wentworth Cheswell, black and white riding.
Now, how is it possible? Did you know that we had an African-American ride to say the British are coming, the British are coming? Amy did. Amy did. Anybody else besides Amy know that? 2, 3. Okay, 3 people in the audience.
Now, the white guy with the sword is Thomas Grosvenor. So you have Thomas Grosvenor and you have Peter Salem, black and white fighting side by side, but Peter is definitely the hero that day. 1817, this painting is done, and all the way up until the 1980s, we knew that that was Peter Salem, the hero of Bunker Hill. 1980s, the professors got together and said, oh, no, that's not Peter Salem. We think that that's Grosvenor's slave is who that is. It's not Peter Salem.
Oh, you're kidding.
No, in the 80s, they changed that from Peter Salem to Grosvenor's slave, Asaba. And that's what they say, oh, no, it's not Peter, it's Asaba, Grosvenor, it's his slave. How come the guy who painted it and the guy who was there and the guy who saw it and painted what he saw had him as Peter Salem, and now we've all convinced, oh, no, it's a slave?
Because first, one thing that I think is missing in America, and it is the key to America, has been the difference between individual rights and collective rights, and this man articulated that.
In a speech entitled Our Composite Nationality, Frederick Douglass said, I know of no rights of color superior to the rights of humanity. He thought the worst thing that could happen for blacks after the Civil War was to treat them as exceptions in the law. And so today, with the discursive logjam that we have over things like affirmative action and group rights, and the only thing that you get from government is if you ally with others who look like you or somehow are categorized like you.
This goes into your theory that this is why this is not being taught, because you can't play the victim card. If you don't...
It goes against the traditional victim narrative. After the Civil War, the history was actually written by the losers. That's the one time in history where the losers wrote the history.
That's exactly right.
Really interesting perspective.
That's exactly right.
All right, David, explain quickly. Let's go through these people.
Let's go through these. This guy right here, this is Lemuel Haynes. Lemuel Haynes is a soldier in the American Revolution. He's a black preacher. He's the first black preacher ordained in America that was a pastor of a white congregation in Vermont, Massachusetts, New York, several places.
A black professor in
black
a
preacher,
white...
That's right, in a white church.
Yeah, black minister.
Black minister in a white church in 4 different states. He was ordained in the Congregationalist denomination in 1785. He's the first black to receive a master's degree in America. He got that in 1804 from Middlebury College. So Lemuel Haynes, every year on Washington's birthday, he preached a special sermon about George Washington, his commander-in-chief, in all of his churches where he was.
Unbelievable.
So we don't hear about Lemuel Haynes. This is Benjamin Banneker. I think he's the most brilliant scientist in American history. This guy, unbelievable what he did. He's the guy
more so than Franklin.
I would put Franklin and Banneker almost equal. Now Franklin did a lot of inventions. This guy one time took a pocket watch. He taught himself how to read. He taught himself science. He wrote an almanac that 10 years ahead he was able to predict to the minute solar eclipses, lunar eclipses, 10 years before they happened. I mean, by watching the motion through a telescope, unbelievable what the guy did. He once took the back off a pocket watch, saw how it worked, went home and carved a wooden clock with all the gears, mainspring, and it was accurate to within 1 minute a year. A wooden clock the guy did.
Cow.
He's the guy who laid out Washington, D.C. He's the surveyor who did all that. He's a brilliant mathematician. Jefferson gave him
Never knew this.
No. Jefferson gave him an example to France, said, hey, you guys in France think that blacks are inferior? Here's Benjamin Banneker.
Okay, first, representatives, I asked, when did we have our first black Speaker of the House? When did we have the first Speaker of the House? 1789. When did we have our first black Speaker of the House? I bet most people would say never.
Never, except it was right here. Joseph Hayne Rainey. Joseph Hayne Rainey of South Carolina is first black to preside over the House of Representatives. These are the first 7 blacks elected to Congress. You have here Senator Hiram Rhodes Revels, the first black U.S. Senator elected. He was a minister of the gospel. He was a missionary. He worked with Frederick Douglass. He recruited 3 regiments of black soldiers in the Civil War, and he was a missionary to slaves in the South. You have here Benjamin Turner, Josiah Wall, this guy right here is really cool. Robert Brown Elliott is probably the most brilliant guy of that era. He actually took on the vice president of the Confederacy in a debate on the floor and just tore his head off. The racist Alexander Stephens. It was a great debate.
When did we turn? Were these guys proud Americans, or did they say
this is the epitome of what we were just talking about. These were individual guys. Half of these guys taught themselves to read. Half of these guys were slaves, and 5 years later, they're sitting in Congress. And as slaves, it was a capital offense to learn to read. So these guys in 5 years, and I'll guarantee you read their speeches and records of Congress, you better have a dictionary and a thesaurus in both hands because you want to understand the language they use. It is so brilliant what these guys did.
But were they there to say the white man is bad and the America is bad?
No. These guys were, Richard Allen, let me go back here. Richard Allen had been in slavery. Richard Allen was in slavery, and he held no bitterness at all. He says, God would not allow bitterness even in Joseph when he was in prison. Do you think God will allow it in us? He said, we can't have bitterness. He said, by the way, there were some whites who held us in slavery, but it's whites who are working for our freedom. I mean, these guys had no bitterness. They wouldn't allow it.
Y'all, you guys, pretty.
And Papadon, that's exactly how I discovered America.
Oh, I need to.
You should have drowned at me when you had the chance.
Oh, look at me.
I need to dig her deeper. Yeah. I don't know where I went. I don't know why you're up there, but
it's not so funny now, is it? There, Rico Kasich in a Cars video.
There we go. But now I got to switch the names all around and shit.
Skype. Just leave them as it is.
Don't worry about it.
All right.
They know who they are.
Then I'll be playing the part of Big Sal today. You will be
Excellent.
GGP.
I'll be back. I'm going to go piss.
GGP, you are Stevie. And, of course, lucky for you, you are Ben Hameen, Stevie. So,
nice.
Bing, 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 gimbal.
I got it right here, Sal.
Look at that gun.
That thing.
It's like a holster. Guy's like Wyatt Earp.
That clip along with the clip of the person on the motorized wheelchair riding behind us at Capitol Theater is going to be played over and over again.
They pop for
the best reaction. You're like, what the fuck?
But
Total feel Stevie. Loved it.
That video was pretty intense, you guys. I mean, you say Glenn Beck and everyone has a fucking adverse reaction, like you say Alex Jones, whatever. But when it comes to professionals or historians and telling some truth, that was a pretty goddamn powerful video right there, dude.
You know, telling the truth actually got him in trouble, right? Because when he did the Federal Reserve video, then they threw his ass off of TV, correct?
Yeah. But I was down like the Peter Salem, hero of Bunker Hill. No one says that name. Like you see the Bunker Hill fight, and then this guy probably came out and was like, "Fuck the rules." Was doing some, LeBron James moves and shit out on the battlefield that some white guys with no rhythm couldn't fucking believe. While he's whacking people out, but lost to history. So Peter Salem, hero of Bunker Hill. And then Prince Whipple, was in that crossing of the Delaware picture where, it's so iconic. But of course, there he is, painted in the smallest version on the backside, rowing his ass off while, Washington stands on the bow going through it. And then I think James Armistead was a double spy for Washington as well that they had mentioned in there. So, feeding the British bullshit and being one of the first stooge reporters of what we do as well. So, and then the last one, and I've heard this is one of the biggest things, and maybe you need to look into it further, was the Paul Revere story, because they put over Paul Revere's big ride, but he only did like 20 miles. Another guy did like 400. But then this one with Wentworth Cheswell that we talked about, who was elected for 49 years in New Hampshire and everything, he rode that same ride with Paul Revere. And
side by side.
Yeah, you don't fucking hear that name whatsoever. And then, right where I live in the area you guys saw there is Revere Cookware in Rome. And all that kind of stuff. And my family worked there years ago. My grandfather did. My cousins have, my uncles have. So, that's kind of a big folklore around here, the Paul Revere thing. Paul Revere was kind of the most pussy of them all in that story of what it is. And he gets the shine the most way. Like, everybody else takes the heat and does the comeback. He comes back in just for the finish.
Here's the thing, man. Like everything else in this fucking life, like the WWE, like every other job on the fucking planet, it's who you know.
Right.
You know what I mean? And here's the thing, and I don't want to take away from Revere. He's not a pussy. The dude did his job. The dude did some shit. Did he do the fucking lion's share of it? Maybe not. There's other, the other guys who did the, he didn't get it, mention it at all, which sucks. This whole video, like that, it fucking blows. But it really he knew the fucking storytellers, so he got put over. And it's just like anywhere else. Like there could be a guy who's 100% more talented. He's not going to get the push.
Right.
So. It's like Stevie in the BWO. He gets all the glory, but we know that Nova and Meanie did all the work.
They did all the hard stuff.
Come on, man. You can even laugh at that, Stevie. Come on.
I'm not going to laugh at that because it's 100% not true. I will educate you, since you're now a Nancy Brown of professional wrestling.
I'm sorry.
Yes, no. I'm going to finish this off now. I'm going to tell you right now. Every time we had a tag match, I would take the heat, and then somehow, some miraculous way, I would come in and take the finish because Meanie was too big and his knees were bad because I don't know what it's like to be injured. And then Nova would say, I'm just not doing it. So the leader was the most flawed one out of all of them, the weakest link, taking heat, getting beat up until he stupidly wants to tag back in to take the finish. There you go. Welcome to BWO.
Strong
we're taking over. I said we're taking over after the match. So you guys have replaced the BWO. So you can be you can be Feinstein popping on.
Oh, that's
congratulations.
Ben, you can really dig her deeper.
That's right.
I just came in from Twitter. I'm not sure if you guys saw this, and this is off topic here, but the Westminster pedophile ring accuser has been charged. So
that's a hell of a segue, isn't it?
Yeah, it was. But with the guy who went to jail there from the right wing dude there that they all marched for, but brought enough charges on it, or brought enough light on it. So we'll see which way things go with that. Maybe we'll have to do a pedo.
You just reminded me too, man.
Go ahead.
So I had a story coming in. A friend of mine from years back, I used to work at Centenary College in Hackettstown.
Mm-hmm.
He had a story about his Monsignor, and there was a demonic possession and a ghost story involved. There's all kinds of shit involved. It was a great story. Wait a minute. Wait for it. So I kind of forgot a lot of the story. It's been a couple of years and a lot of beers. So I was like, Dave, do me a favor. Get a hold of the brother again. Got to find out the story. Get the story. I want to go. I want to tell the guys. It's going to be great. Maybe we can look into it. All right. It's right here in Bath, right over here. So, okay, terrific. So he comes back, my friend Dave comes back, and he says, so I got some news. And I'm like, oh, what happened? So end of the story means the guy who originally told us the story, who was such good friends with the Monsignor was just arrested for corrupting a minor.
Excellent.
So he doesn't want to talk about it. He doesn't want to think about this guy. Because this guy was his sister's boss, and he was going to marry his sister.
The Monsignor was going to marry the sister.
Yeah, like he was going to do the ceremony and the whole bit.
Yeah.
And the Monsignor now, like I guess, got caught diddling a young girl or something. So boom. And I said, you fucked up my whole angle.
All within 1 degree of separation of them covering for each other, dude, and let them all roll. Actually, as a rib on me earlier, I was actually having to post biblical quotes in the chat room about giants when we were talking about that earlier. They wanted to know where it was in there. And Stevie was ribbing me as Pastor Hameen. But I did get my certificate from some Universal Life Church because I have to be the minister of my brother-in-law and sister-in-law's wedding as well. So, if you want someone who's not connected to kid diddling in any way, I'm also available for weddings. We'll do it in gimmick if you want me to as well. And you know where they're actually having their wedding, man? At the Field Museum in Chicago and in the dinosaur section. So I may actually dress like dude from Jurassic Park when I go there, like one of the park dudes, and perform it that way. So, if you need me, I'm available. And, I'll also, instead of kiss the bride, I'll slap her for $5 extra.
Nice.
But, you guys, this is, pretty interesting, heavy stuff of, sure, it's our American history as we head into 4th of July, Independence Day, and we wanted to do something along those lines. But the overall bigger thing is why are we being kayfabed on this even now? This information's there, can easily be found, readily available. You can dig her deeper and find out 17, possible presidents. I saw the 8 during the Articles of Confederation. The Glenn Beck thing of the founding fathers who are black African Americans that just written out of history to get to the divisiveness and the separation where we're at now. That by telling people this could be a pebble in the pond wherever you are in healing that divide, in getting a little more respect for somebody you might not have as much for based on some goddamn mumble rappers and whatever the fuck. So just wanted to go around the horn and hear your guys' opinions there. What are you thinking, Stevie?
I go back to what I said before where, we need to figure out how in the world we're going to be able to open the minds up to let people know that this history and what we can learn new stuff. It doesn't have to be static.
No.
Like once you know something, it's like, I know everything I'll need to, and that really is, I used the word systemic a few times today, but that's a systemic problem throughout humanity right
Sure.
now. Not just American society or anywhere else, but once the information is given to you, it's almost like we were just told what to believe. Let's let the people who know what they're doing handle it. You've heard all these cop-outs from people that to not take accountability or responsibility for their own actions, beliefs, education, all that stuff. And institutional learning is just not going to, why should we believe anything? Sal, before you came on, I know you get triggered by the flat earth, the dinosaurs and all that stuff and everything. But if we've been lied to 100%, this goes along with the giant stuff. If we've been lied to 100% of the time, then why? And there's these secret archives in the Smithsonian, the Vatican, all these things that are supposedly information that, is supposed to be,
perfect.
This is what we're telling you, but we still have these secret archives with the information that we're not hiding from you. It just makes no sense. And I wouldn't even doubt that the Smithsonian and even the Library of Congress and other places, they're hiding stuff like what we talked about today. In plain sight, probably.
A phenomenal point, and that even goes back to the giant stuff where we say the Vatican and Smithsonian kayfabe that, to wrap it back into just what we talked about in the beginning. That's regardless of who's left out of history and who's what, that just shows what they've done. If they'll do it at that level on some guys who were signing papers and coming out of old wartime, what else that's even more mind-boggling and bigger has been kept from us?
Well, that's the thing, man. They did this to guys who still exist.
Yeah.
Imagine what they did to the dudes who aren't around anymore.
Right. GGP, what are you thinking?
It's all work. It's all work, man. They're keeping us divided so we don't come together and realize our full potential as a society, as a group. I mean, we can get so much accomplished by working together instead of us fighting each other, fighting for crumbs. And like I said before, it's just like the whole locker room versus the office mentality. You know, the office knows that if they keep the boys on their tippy toes and separated and ratting on one another, you know, then they know they have all the power because everyone's out for themselves. Everybody wants to advance themselves and take care of their families, but they don't realize that if they work together, then their families and everybody will be taken care of. You know what I'm saying? It's well,
what was Adam Ruins Everything, where he goes, the biggest work your company wants you to do is keep your salary quiet, because then the guy next to you doesn't know what you're making. If he's making more, you're making more. If everybody would just come out and say, well, I make this, well, it's rude to talk about that. Fuck that. Just say, I make this and I make this. That way they would ask the boss, well, why is she making more than I am? I've been here longer. Why are they doing this? Why are they doing this? And it becomes a public talk now. Now the higher ups have to talk to the people, and the people are all together, because now it turns into them versus the office. Mm-hmm. So, you know, that's the thing. It's a whole point of, you have to have a public discourse to talk about it.
But also, it even states in the Constitution, you know, the reason why we have the Second Amendment, the reason why the Constitution is in place is to protect us not from other countries, but from the government itself. And they know that if we come together, we can overthrow all of them and get them out of office and reelect proper officials who are going to do the right thing, or else they'll get their ass thrown out, because we have the power as we the people. But people are so blind to the fact, all they can see is 2 feet in front of them instead of seeing the big picture, or they just don't want to see the big picture, because just like technology, right? We love the advances in technology because convenience is what we're looking for. We don't need to work. We don't want to walk into our house and turn on a light switch. We have a smart house. We want all our devices connected, but so we can talk to them instead of pushing a button. You know what I'm saying? So if we're willing to give up our freedom so we can get spied on just for convenience and technology and all that stuff, you don't think the same situation and the same factors apply within government and social standards amongst the masses? Of course it does. People just want convenience. They don't want to be bothered by doing the hard work. They don't want to come together. They don't want to have a meeting. They don't want to realize that, guess what? If we work together, we'll get full potential and everything out of life to what we're supposed to get. They're just, I'm happy with my 1%. As long as I can watch my TV and keep spinning on my hamster wheel from 9 to 5, and I can pay my bills and I can just survive, I'm okay. As long as it don't bother me, don't bother anybody else, I'm all right. Meanwhile, everybody else in government, in the 1%, they're laughing because they're making money off of you being in debt. And that's how the world goes around, and the rich stay richer and the poor stay poor.
Phenomenal Nancy Brown impersonation.
Thank you.
Yeah, man, I couldn't agree any more with everything that was just said here, and I don't think I have much more to add except for, hey, this is a great way to wake somebody up just a little bit without having it to be some hardcore conspiracy shit where you can bring it up on the phone and just say, hey, Google first 8 presidents, and then boom, you've rocked them off their foundation even just a little bit. You guys want to do a couple emails quick, or are you guys good?
Yeah, please.
All right.
I was looking forward to today.
All right. From Steve Fondo, he just sent a voice thing about our phones listening to us. We'll take a look at that, man. We've kind of covered that. From Brandon Stransky, hey guys, how's it going? I'm a listener who crossed over from Russo brand. We've chatted a few times on Twitter before, and this is my first time sending you guys something for the gender neutral messaging bag. Have become a big fan and always make it a habit to listen, even if the topic is something I'm not really interested in, as you guys make the show entertaining to listening to regardless. Well, thank you, Brandon. I recently have gone back and started re-listening to Bill Cooper's old Hour of the Time broadcast. Nice. And came back across an 8-episode series based on what he called the Treason Papers, which showed some damning evidence that President Harry Truman had already sold the U.S. to the UN and placed it under UN charter, and how there are laws signed, sealed, and delivered to disarm the American populace that are just waiting for public approval to be carried out, among other things. Links to the shows are provided below. Love what you guys are doing. Keep up the great work. And he sent all things to the show there. I look forward to listening to them, and I will definitely forward them to all the guys here, Brandon, so thank you. Sell out to the UN. I mean, this is if you're talking Truman times, we saw Jade Helm with UN vehicles being transported through Texas in the Southwest for a capstone FEMA practicum. You're like, what the fuck are UN vehicles doing on the back of trains in the U.S. being strategically placed? You know, it's there. It has been, whether it's turning Walmarts into holding cells now for Mexican kids, but believe me, they'd get those kids out of there double quick and make those into re-education camps for anybody who goes along with the official narrative of the New World Order if they get it implemented. What do you think, Stevie?
Absolutely right. On all counts. I can't believe they exposed the kids in those.
Yeah,
which is crazy because they don't even do their due diligence and realize that these laws about the families being separated was not even under, like Papadon said earlier, it was not even under Trump.
Yeah,
they can't even, like, you know,
2014 this is going to be going on too. Like, so
well, there's also interviews with Obama that, you know, I'm just saying that, like, we need to get hired by these fuckers. They don't know what they're doing. They gotta keep their mouth shut. They can't even, I mean, they should be writing wrestling on Monday and Tuesday nights. They're that fucking bad. But yeah, the Jade Helm thing has been quiet for a while. That was a big Alex Jones thing for a long time, a big thing on David Icke. And it seems to be really quiet, which is the scariest part because we're separating these FEMA regions already. They're already prepared to siphon and filter people through where they should go into these Walmarts.
I mean, that's what Hunger Games predictive programming is too. It's exactly that. Your region, whatever the fuck.
Are they still doing military quote exercises? They have a few in Ohio a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
They had a couple in Texas, but they got to still be doing this. This is under Jade Helm as well. It was Jade Helm 13, I think, in Ohio or something.
Right.
But they got to be doing it. They got to be doing this to this day, but it's just 24-hour news cycle. It just gets pushed to the side.
Yeah, it's never not going to be happening until they implement it. They're not going to drill it and then be like, remember we did that drill 10 years ago, now we're going to go into that. They're going to always keep it.
Dude, drills are the biggest red flag in today's world of violence. If you see a drill going on, fucking run.
Yeah.
Get away.
Yeah, get it on tape and post it for sure so everyone can be aware. Sally, what are you thinking?
No, just the whole thing with the camps now, and like, it's cyclical, man. Cyclical. What they did with the Japanese internment camps that we all know, everybody knows about it now, thanks to George Takei, because otherwise nobody had any idea they happened.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if it wasn't for George, nobody'd know. And now they've done this every time they were trying to contain. They weren't trying to imprison. They were containing for the betterment of America. That's what they threw out. You know what I mean? So it's going to keep going, and they'll keep using different words. They'll use any kind of words they can, anything that's not going to trigger the people and make them think, oh, well, they're just going to keep doing this, and it doesn't matter who's in charge. This is how they're going to do it until they're stopped.
And we'll see if they're stopped or not. I mean, it is that same thing. And I saw how many Iranians Obama made citizens and all this, like these propaganda stories that way. Which group are they going to target? It seems like the Mexicans are easier for them right now as the deep state tries to overrun so they can make them look a certain way. But, this is just history repeating itself. And as I said earlier in the Bob Marley verse, if you don't know your history, you'll never know where you're coming from. And easy to fool them again and again, just like we did on 9/11 with a false flag after we learned about it, from Vietnam as it's starting wars. And I don't know, it comes from InfoWars, but Swamp Drain, I sent that other video of that Trump might release 9/11 files that bury Jeb Bush, the whole Bush family, Cheney, Rumsfeld. Hey, man, this is the possibility of peeling that Band-Aid off that, is going to hurt.
You won't do it.
We'll see. I mean, even the fact that headline's out there, that's enough of a pebble in the pond, dude. Just that wouldn't have happened. You know what I mean? Just to see that headline alone gives me that little like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
maybe
but
20 years.
Is that the gimmick? Is that what they want?
It could be.
Do they want to? Do they want to please us by just giving us a crumb? So there is a little bit of hope, but nothing still changes.
Yeah.
I mean, what happened with the JFK files?
But still,
You know what I'm saying? The biggest thing that come out of the JFK files was that they didn't release the important part, and then we found out Hitler lived.
Well, not even like a bit of hope. What if they know? Hey, look, we can't do this. So let's put the crumb out there and let other people start looking. Let them be the ones to fucking expose it.
Right.
So even if they inspire one person to start looking a little more, start pushing a little harder, and maybe that'll be the person.
If it wasn't for the Clinton emails, WikiLeaks, then we wouldn't have probably all these pedophile rings collapsing around us either, right? Even though they haven't gotten to Podesta and the whole crew, like at least fucking. There's probably been 3,000 people arrested in connection with this type of shit. So all that. You guys good on this one? Move on to the next one.
Yeah,
here?
move on.
Okay.
Like you said in the barbershop. Next.
Let's see here. From Matt Fuller, I believe. Everyone, your podcast starts with which is called Islamic prayer. This sounds like disco trying to sing finally to get over on a top show. You guys aren't giving the Soup Kitchen bum a handout, are you? No, we're not. Stevie, I'm down 13 pounds with SRF. Thank you very much, my brother. Pop it on. I laugh out loud every time you take a piss break. I might have a smaller bladder than you, and it makes me pop every show about 32 to 38 minutes in. Big Sal, your weekly drank always makes me so thirsty. Probably why I got that effing bladder problem to begin with. Ben, I want to personally thank you for being the biggest part of my awakening. I owe you a lot. Well, that's very kind. Keep up the amazing work, Conspiracy Horsemen. I look forward to upcoming TV shows. #Horsemen for life. Thank you, brothers. Well, that's very kind of you, man.
Thank you.
Anybody got anything you want to add on that? GGPP?
Dude, that's money. That's money. Yeah, man. Thanks for listening. You want to make us happy? Go buy our shirts at Pro Wrestling Tees.
Yeah.
Support the cause.
20% off through the 6th using the code America.
America.
Yeah, and good job on the Stevie Richards Fitness workout too, man. Definitely post your results in the SRF HHMG group, and definitely inspire others. We appreciate it, and keep working hard, man.
Yeah, speaking of lack of inspiration, the show has started. It's here on Sling.
Oh shit!
Right there.
Let us start.
Yeah.
We're doing more.
That's the best part.
Right.
Showing all the talents that actually got themselves over.
Should we wrap up the show here?
Yeah, I kind of got to. We gotta jump off here, guys. There's only 2 left. We'll get to them next Wednesday, no doubt. We want to say thank you to everybody this weekend who was such a big part of All Bin and really kicked ass. We had a great time, you guys. You guys cool with not doing plugs right now because we gotta jump off.
I'm cool with that.
That's fine, man.
But you know where it's at, StevieRichardsFitness.com, all the pro wrestling tees. And, we'll plug sponsors later. And actually, it tacked on to the end of this, so don't go away. I'm going to put on our Saturday show from All Bin. So you got an extra super long episode to get through, you guys. But y'all law infidels, conspiracy horsemen, 4th of July episode, know your history, spread your history, and let people know what really has been kept from this and kayfabe from us because of the conspiracy horsemen. That's right.
What you should do. Make history.
Y'all law infidels, don't blow yourself up or do blow yourself up on this 4th of July. Y'all law.